Presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are sharing more details of their economic proposals as the election draws closer. Joining us now to discuss what we know so far, PwC's National Tax Office co-leader, Rohit Kumar, and professor at both Yale Law School and Yale School of Management, Natasha Sarin. It's unique that I get to ask you a question. Let's start with you, Rohit. You're here on set. I would normally say which group of proposals is better. In this case, I'm sorry, and I'm going to, out myself. I think we have to ask which case is actually worse. I'm not going to ask which is better. Which is less bad, in your view?
Yeah. So look, they both have pros and cons, right? Both candidates have policies that raise a lot of money. And both sets of policies, that money would, even though the check is being written by the importer on the case of the tariff or a company in the case of a corporate rate, who actually bears the burden of the tax is actually like regular workers, right? Customers of companies, workers who work at a company, you invest in a company, more than 61% of the population owns shares in a company. So there's, both sides are trying to make the argument that, mine, it comes from the money tree at the end of the double rainbow, somewhere over, wherever. That's just not true, right? And there's sort of a disingenuity at some level that, my money is free money, but your money is like comes.
I didn't hear any pros there, Rohit. Do you have any pros? I guess maybe you do. Let me ask it this way. Let's say, since we're all saying, hey, it's going to be divided government, not to worry, neither one of these candidates is going to get what they're saying done. But what if it did happen? What if everything each candidate has proposed actually happened? Which is worse, Natasha?
So I guess I kind of disagree with Rohit in that I think there's a pretty big substantive difference between these two candidates. In Donald Trump, you have basically like a no taxes on everything approach. It's no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on no taxes to the tune of $10 trillion of unfinanced deficit increases. And in Kamala Harris, you have just a much more fiscally responsible approach. You have her saying she wants to invest in growing American families, in an expanded child tax credit. You have her saying she wants to invest in small businesses, the engines of growth in the American economy, and she's going to pay for that. And so it's just a fundamentally fiscally different approach. One is fiscally responsible and the other isn't. And that's why I think you have 88 business leaders, you have 68 Nobel laureates in economics, you have budget and tax experts on like both sides of the aisle saying in this election it's not really a close call. There's one candidate you should trust with the economy and fiscal responsibility, and that's Kamala Harris.
Whoa. Wow. You got anything after that, Rohit?
Yeah, look, I mean, yes, there are a whole bunch of tax increases in Vice President Harris's campaign proposal, but those taxes would largely be borne by the middle class. So this is not an argument about, and moreover, many of the proposals that former President Trump has indicated, like no taxes on tips, Vice President Harris has adopted that as well because we are in a campaign and politicians will say things in campaigns, but when we get to the end of next year, we have $4.5 trillion of tax relief that's expiring. That's going to be the issue on the table. And the question is, are we going to pay for it? Are we going to deficit finance it? Are some of that stuff not going to get extended? My guess is it's going to be some combination of those three levers. But those are the levers on the table, and that's the serious conversation.
Rohit, we could be totally fiscally responsible and raise the marginal rate to 90% on rich people. We could go take corporate taxes back to 40%. Do you ever ask the other side are there any consequences to taking the money out of the private sector to innovation and entrepreneurs and business formation?
You could take all the money from all the people and no one would engage in economic activity.
And that would be fiscally prudent.
And you would run the economy into the ground.
So there must be some middle ground. Natasha, you see what I'm saying? So you want to raise corporate, you don't think any of the Trump tax cuts are responsible for the strong economy we have right now? The corporate tax cut, no benefits from what we saw back in 2017? None?
So I don't think you have to just trust me. I think you can kind of trust the empirical evidence here, which is the best work that I've seen on this has come out of economists at Princeton and at Chicago, Owen Zadar and Eric Zwick and Gabriel Chodor-Reich. And what they say is that the Trump tax cuts were a mechanical decrease of about 40% in corporate tax revenue. And to be fair, you did see some growth increase. And what you saw is that growth increase offset maybe 2 percentage points of that 40% decline. And so I think there is just, frankly, space with respect to raising corporate tax rates. Part of the reason why I think there is some space here is the corporate tax rate today is 21%. Business Roundtable, when TCJA was being legislated, they were going for a 25% rate. The U.S. raises something like 6% of its taxes from corporate taxes. The OECD average is something like 12%. So there is just space here and revenue here to be had in a pro-growth way, which I think is really important.
How much more? There's been a significant increase in corporate taxes between 2017
corporate
and now.
receipts are breaking records.
They're breaking records.
They're breaking records. And let me fill in. We've got some nice economic research. I've got economic research that would tell you something different.
That reminded me of climate models, what I just
Let's look at some real data, right? Some real data. So post-TCJA, post the 2017 Act, real wages increased by $6,000, faster than the last 10 years, prior 10 years combined. Unemployment amongst African Americans, Hispanics, those without high school diplomas, record like lowest since we started measuring.
Lower than it is
this
now.
thing. So look, there's some, there's nice models, and you get multiple economists, you get multiple answers. The real data would tell you this had a real growth effect on the economy, and it particularly helped lower income workers. Wages grew at the lower end of the scale faster than they grew at the high end of the scale. And so the proposal that we're going to retrench on all of that and that's going to come at no economic cost, frankly, it just doesn't hold water.